Hey guys, and welcome to the next video in our ROTJ build guide. We are now working on the actual head for the RTJ. So I've got all of our parts laid out. So let's go ahead and begin. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties and we've already applied two parts. So let me go ahead and show you what those two parts are. So this part right here, there is a small rectangular section that you would glue this little, what I would call like maybe 1/8 turn curved section. This holds a hose, so you're going to want to glue that in place. And then on the inside of your head, there is also a slightly curved section, and there's a rectangular cutout that you're also going to use to glue in place right here. So those two parts I've already installed, so go ahead and just glue those in place with some super glue, and then you'll be caught up with exactly where we are before. So moving on, let's move to the back. So on the back, we've got these four wire pieces. So normally you would install all of your parts, but with these parts, all of them are supposed to be painted black. So I'm going to show you where they go, but we're not actually going to install them because it would be very difficult for you to then paint these parts after they're installed. So this part goes right here, and you can see on the back underneath you've got two rows of holes, an upper and a lower. The half circle wire goes in the upper hole and then into the slot. So again, I'm not going to glue this in place. I'm going to paint it black first, do my base coat color, then glue this in place, and then we'll weather after this is glued in place. For the cables, they just fit in place on the bottom row. So the bottom hole down here, and there's a bottom hole down here. And you can see that that just fits in place. Again, we'll paint this black first. So that's all that goes on the back. So we're just going to move these to the side right now so that we can paint them on their own. So that's it for the back. Now let's go ahead and start installing parts. We'll start with a fun part, our top hatch. So the top hatch is movable. So to be able to make that movable, we have two parts that make up our hinge, okay? On the outside of the hinge, there is a little shape. The little shape is going to point towards the outside. So one points this way and one points this way. And then they're both of the points point away to the left if this is facing you, okay? So for example, this one is going to go into this little slot and it's going to face away. And the other one is just going to mirror it. And that creates the hinge. So what we're going to do is while this is in place, we're going to put some glue in just into these two slots, and then we're just going to press this against the hinge, and that's going to create a little bit of friction and allow us to move the hatch up and down. So while I am pressing, I'm going to press from this side, pressing down and pressing against the hatch. Our glue is still wet. Let's go ahead and give that a spray. Let that dry. We're going to give that about 10 seconds. There you go. Now you've created a nice hinge. It's not super stiff, but it's stiff enough to hold it. So if you wanted to create any extra stiffness, I think the only thing that you could try to do would be to try to use a little bit of a clamp to create your pressure, and then really wait for this to dry, or you could use some sort of epoxy that's a little bit slower after clamping to create a little bit of extra pressure. But it might be a little bit difficult to create a lot of pressure here. So any amount of pressure is going to be a nice added benefit, but the reality is that you're going to have it open like this or closed like this. So now you've got a nice working hatch. So let's go ahead and flip this over. This one's going to be a little bit more of the hands-on approach. You're going to have to do some squeezing. So we're going to apply our bottom. So you've got tabs on the bottom, and we're just going to put some glue on them. And I'm going to overfill the glue section because I want it to spill over. Then we're going to put this in. We're going to lock the back, lock the sides, and lock the front. And then in an ideal world, you have a buddy come in, like your wife or somebody, and spray the back side of this with some accelerant. I'm going to have Justin do that off camera for me. If you don't have anybody, then you're just going to have to hold it, or you can figure out how to clamp it. So then I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to run a bead along the inside. And make sure that that is nice and secure. So now we're nice and strong. Now we've got our back part. So now that we've done the work of that slight bit of shaping, this thing fits like an absolute glove. So let's go ahead and pop this guy off. And we're going to go ahead and put our glue on. And then just drop this guy in place. And now, of course, there's no spraying. We can spray a little bit on the bottom just to make sure that nothing weeps out. It's always a wise thing to do. But the rest of it's just going to solidify on its own. And now let's go ahead and move on to our side panels. So they're pretty self-explanatory. You just want to make sure that the angles point towards the front. You've got a large surface area here. So we're not going to go all the way up to the edge. We're just going to make a border here because you don't want anything to squeeze out. And then we're just going to do a little squiggle in the middle. And then just be careful because there's not a big bump out for it. And then I'm going to press all over just in case there's any deformation. We want to make sure that that shield is completely secure, no gaps. Just press it nicely in place. And flip it over. We're just going to do the same thing to the other one. Again, take your time, just be easy. There we go. It's nice and slid in place, just kind of barely locks in place. Press it all over. Look at it from the back, make sure there's no cracks. So you can see that if I let go of this one, it comes up just a little bit. So I'm going to let go, spray, press back down right away. What I'm hoping is that a little bit of that accelerant just leaked through just a little bit. There we go. Stays in place. Okay. Now we've got our side panels, little side panels. So it's going to be the exact same process. They just slide in place. Again, if you go with a lot of force, they're going to pop right out. So just be careful. Now, let's move on to these guys. So there's only one way that they can go on. You've got two different shapes on the back. So let's start off with our right-hand side. So we'll fill glue on the side. A little bit of glue here. And there's a little bit of play, so just look at the side of your head and then just kind of work it into its center position. And then you just want to hold that there. Give it a little bit of time to solidify. And then you can do the same thing with this. So we'll put a little bit of glue on the outside. Then we'll put some glue on the inside. We'll put some glue around the edge. Make sure it's nice and centered. Squeeze. Then we'll just hold it there for a couple of seconds. Okay. Now let's grab one of our beautiful metal parts. So this just fits over the top and into these holes. Nice and beautiful, just like that. So all we've got to do is drop some glue into the holes. And I'm going to go ahead and clip my plastic. We get another throwaway brush, or three. Pointy. So I'm just going to grab a throwaway brush. and wipe up any excess glue from these holes just to make sure everything's nice and clean. So this is one of our own throwaway brushes. So we use throwaway brushes for absolutely everything. These will actually be coming available for sale soon. So if you don't have access to throwaway brushes, you're in luck. We will have a very large batch available very soon in stock. No pre-orders, yay. All right, so let's get this guy on. All right, so that's nice and secure. Okay. So of course we've got, as I throw it, we've got a wire rack up at the top. This is something that you're going to probably want to paint separately. So it fits nicely. I'm not going to glue that in. You can see that that fits really sweet. Once we do the full like installation, I'll pop it back in place because it fits, but that's how it goes. This guy fits in here. So you can see that it's a pretty loose fit. So let's go ahead and do our little friction. So the final part here are the little windows. So one thing that you can do to make the little windows a little bit more accurate, that's not included in the kit, is you can grab some 0.5 millimeter wire, and there are little like bent hinges underneath these windows. So you can see that the windows go into these pegs and they just kind of sit here. Well, there's a kind of like a half moon shape. Like if I were to grab this and bend this around like a screwdriver, then there's a little piece of wire on the ILM version that's supposed to hold this up. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there just to show you. And if you want to buy a little package of 0.5 millimeter wire, you can go ahead and do that. And that part is going to go where the holes are. So there is a hole for it. It is on the short side, just in towards the center. So I'm going to grab some wire snips. So we've cut 2 pieces of these off. So I'm going to go ahead and glue one in place, and then we'll figure out our absolute length. This is one of the supreme benefits of the spray. Okay, so you can see right here that I've cut off about half of what we started with. The arch goes upwards, right? So when you install it, the arch goes upwards, and then I angled it out. So then when this goes in, it's going to lean against this inner windowsill right here. And that's where it's going to press. Now, the same thing goes with painting. I'm not going to glue these in place, but this actually sets really nicely. So let me go ahead and demo how this goes together. So it starts off with tiny drop of glue. Grab your piece. We're going to put it on the table, 90-degree angle. Spray it. That's going to solidify our glue. Then I'm going to find my cutoff point. And I'm going to bend this outward. And then let's go ahead and drop, whoop, not on my hand, one extra drop of glue right there. So now we've got 2 windows. And if we insert these, there you go. 2 windows with hinges. Absolutely beautiful. Just like that. So there's the head. So all you should have left when you're done, let's move all of this stuff out of the way. You've got 2 shield pieces. You've got your neck piece. We've got our hoses and our springs. And then we should have 2 screws that hold the head armature together, that put the head armature together. Then you've got our rear armature stand. And this is the unit that goes with the rear armature stand. And there's going to be some little screws that go with those. Go motion. So you're going to need the go motion screws. Okay. Now, for some reason, they gave us these screws, number 4, for mounting to the wood base, but they didn't include wood screws. They included mechanical screws. So you might want to go to Home Depot or your local hardware store or Amazon and grab some tiny little wood screws. You can measure the diameter of this, and really any tiny wood screw is going to do. We've got some just very basic wood screws here at the shop, and that's what we're going to use. If you wanted to use these, then you could drill a hole that's slightly smaller and then just use wood glue when you install them. Just be aware that you're never going to be able to get this out once you put these in, because they're not going to bite very well, but the glue is what's going to hold them in. And then you could also, if you wanted to, put some glue on the bottom of this, and they'll stay. They won't go anywhere. But it's not the same thing as using a wood screw. So just be aware of that. You do have some options. But in the next episode, we're going to start doing the actual assembly process. We'll get our hoses and our springs installed, and we'll get this stuff onto the base. Okay? That's it. Thanks.